And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Lochran along with you on this Friday morning, or maybe a late Thursday night for you out on the West Coast. Appreciate you tuning into the podcast. We're also brought to you in part by Yahoo DFS. We'll get to more on that momentarily. Dave, how the hell are you doing?
We got 2 minutes left in this Sixers game. 106 Philly, 100 Boston. It's been a good one. Trying to pull it off, man. It's a pretty big game.
I appreciated Embiid saying that Barkley and Shaq had a point. I don't agree with him in that light.
You don't agree with
Shaq and Barkley. Like, I don't think they really have a point on him not wanting it. It's just, I feel like it's talking head BS. That
I think a lot. I think you're right to a large extent.
But I appreciate Embiid playing the role of, hey, I have to be better.
Yeah, and I think it was kind of a humbling experience for him too, because a lot of times all you hear is the positive stuff. All you hear is the glowing endorsements of how good your game is. But it takes sometimes somebody telling you like, hey, you need to be better at this, or, you're really good, but you could be better.
Yep.
Or even like, you're so good that just stop with the bullshit. And I've been annoyed with Embiid sometimes, the way he acts on the court, like kind of the like wannabe tough guy act. It does come off that way to me personally. And he's one of the best centers. He's one of the best players in the league. So for him to humble himself and be like, look, they are right, really made me like him a lot more.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I think from a PR perspective and a marketing perspective, great job. But also from a liking the player and hoping he gets even better than he is now. Impressive to see him have this maturation and this change in how he goes about playing the game of basketball. We do have 9 games on tap. We'll use lines where we have them. Obviously, over-unders and spreads come out as typically we're recording this late Thursday night. We will also dive in positionally. So we'll go point guard through center. We're using DK as our jumping off point. As I said, I will talk a little bit about what Yahoo has to offer. I will also say the early bird promo is going away. I've been doing this for about 18 months now. So for Awesemo, maybe a little more. I don't know anymore. I lose track. But we've used the same promo code for a long time. It's going away. The monthly promos are going away. So if you want to get 50% off your first month at Awesemo.com, you need to do it by the end of day Friday. So you want to use that promo code EARLYBIRD, 50% off. If not, hang tight. Look what other promos we have coming down the pike, but that is up to you. And that is up to your wallet and potentially your partner or whomever else sets the budget for your discretionary funds.
Potentially your partner, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a fair point. Let's dive in here. 9 games on tap. Some good ones, too, here. I think we're going to get some interesting discussions around the likes of LeBron and Jimmy Butler in a head-to-head matchup. Not sure who's covering who or who's covering whom to grammatically get deep in the weeds there. But at point guard, Harden's at the top. LeBron is point guard eligible, but I'm going to save him for small forward. Westbrook, Trae Young at 9,100, Devonte Graham at 8,300, and then you have Simmons, Mitchell, and Levine has a Q tag. Actually, you typically have a quick rundown here of injuries. I see that Levine most likely is probable. There are some other, obviously, Yanis was out with, I think they deemed it a quad injury. Really felt like load management. I'm not judging anyone, but that really felt like, hey, let's get Yanis a rest day here in a matchup we should win handily. But
no question.
So you have no doubt in a back-to-back here, we're seeing Yanis Friday night, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah. There's no question about it. And we saw how easily they handled.
Oh, my God. That game.
It was just too easy. And that was without Yanis. So, I expect him to be back going up against Memphis. But, look, you're dealing with the exact same thing again. They're probably going to blow out the Memphis Grizzlies, right? Like, I say this a lot. Like, I generally don't pay much attention to blowouts. But when you're literally over the last month, averaging 28 minutes, 29 minutes per game because every game is a blowout, you have to pay attention to that. And that's what we've seen here. But, yeah, the point guard position, there's quite a bit to like. And on a 9-game slate, that should be the case. And, by the way, there was something I wanted to mention quickly before we get into this. You'll get comments sometimes about like, hey, great call on this. Sarcastic. Great call on this. What were you thinking or whatever? a lot of times when it comes to value plays, you're really simply looking for minutes.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The matchup is not even secondary, tertiary. Like it matters way less than everything else.
It's a solid word, by the way, tertiary. Well done.
Oh, thank you, sir. I try.
I know you do. I just want to give you some accolades.
I appreciate
some
that.
That's why we're here.
I appreciate that. So you think about it, and like if you say like, let me give you an example. Tonight, I was one guy that, and I like, okay, Terrence Davis, I was completely wrong on the other day. Thought he'd get 24 minutes. That's just wrong call. Was wrong. Today, Daniel Tice, he's going to play about 24 minutes. I had him playing 27 or 28. Now, I also didn't think Greg Williams would play any center like he did last game, and was right. He didn't. But Enes Kanter's playing 24 minutes, like the most we've ever seen him play. So in terms of analysis, we're right that only 2 centers played this game. And when that's the case, it's usually 26, 27 Tice, 21, 22 to Enes Kanter. When it's something like that, if I get it wrong, and Tice still had a fine game, but if I get something like that wrong, I'm okay with it. When I get ones wrong, like Terrence Davis, I'm pretty pissed. But I wanted to throw it out there because, like, for someone else that's new to this, and you're new to like analysis and breaking it down, the minutes are so much more important than the minutes and usage. Like that's what you're projecting. If you get the minutes right with a cheap guy that has even a little bit of usage, more times than not, it's going to pay off.
Well, it's Ersan. I mean, and not the one off there, but Ersan at 3,800 went off for what, 10x or whatever it was. And I think it's a great point. We do try, Dave and I, Adam and I, when I try to ask them questions to get some of this analysis in as well of the learning curve. And I don't know that everyone listens or seeks out the educational side of DFS, but this is what matters too. Like the hows and the whys choices are made and plays are made based on this background. It's not just throwing, pasta at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's figuring out why you're doing things. And Dave just made a great point of minutes matter. Like minutes matter so much in the NBA, and chasing minutes is probably the best way to go about trying to find value plays rather than chasing somebody who's going to play 16 minutes who you think has upside for one reason or another.
Right. And it's not just the minutes that it's not just like, oh, did they play heavy minutes? It's getting the minutes right, figuring out the rotation, go on popcorn machine, look at what they've done. Look at what they do when this guy is off the floor. You got a guy that's filling in for him. Is he going to do the same thing? Is the personnel the same? Did anyone get in foul trouble? So I just wanted to throw that stuff out there. I think it's important stuff over the long run when you're trying to do analysis for basketball.
More than worthwhile for sure. Point guard is where we were headed. You do have James Harden at 12-6 against Orlando, who I think, if memory serves me correctly, isn't one of the highest paced teams in the NBA on the year. Maybe I'm wrong there. But a situation here where Harden is expensive. Do you see some upside for him at this price point? Or is this a situation where if you happen to get some when building multiple lineups, you're happy and you move on from there?
I'm not opposed to Harden, but that is an exorbitant price.
Yep.
I mean, he's really expensive. And a couple of things to point out, like Trae Young's price has dropped down to 9,100. That's really cheap. He was at 10.5, 10.4, 10.3, 10.4, 10.5. His price has been crazy. That's to start December. He hasn't been below 10.3. And now he's dropped down to 9,100. Like that's just way too good of a price. I know he's had a couple rough games, but I still see myself getting there for sure. Devonte Graham at 8,300. I'm not comparing these guys to Harden, of course, but Graham's usage continues to rise. He's playing 37 minutes, 36 minutes in competitive games, sometimes more. Like it's a position that offers a lot. Mike Conley being out. How about Donnie Mitchell? A little bit expensive, but phenomenal matchup against Golden State. Ben Simmons at 82 against New Orleans. There's a lot to like here, and that's just a really expensive price point on Harden. Not to mention that Yanis against Memphis, I get it. The blowout is always concerning, but $1,400 discount. The minutes are an issue because Harden plays so many more minutes, but Yanis also, this is a faster pace, should be a higher scoring game. And if Yanis does get 32, like the other day against Orlando, everyone was concerned. Well, I projected him for 32 minutes, felt good about it, because if it doesn't blow out, you're getting those minutes. He played 35, had 68 fantasy points. If it stays close, you're getting a monster Yanis game, and that's what you're looking for. So whenever he might fall below 11K, and then that's just getting crazy.
Yep, that makes a ton of sense. Talking about usage, and you look at the likes of where is it? I think I just had Devonte Graham. Maybe I lost him. Devonte Graham over the last 15 games is at 26.4. But this is a guy.
Usage? Yeah.
Do I have that right? 15 games. Yes, 26.4. I want to double check what I have him for this season, because I would assume it's 25.3. I thought it was a bigger gap than that, but still, this is a guy that clearly has taken hold of that sort of lead scorer role and lead usage guy for the Charlotte Hornets. And this is a spot where I think I'll have at least a bit. If I'm hand building lineups and building 5 to 10 lineups, he's somebody that I like a lot here. Looking at 8,300, we scroll down, we get into the likes of Brogdon, Drew Holiday's at 7,400 against the 76ers.
Let me real quick though. Yep. Another huge thing is Graham has a 37% assist rate. So 26, what did you say? 26.4 usage over the past 15 games. 37% assist rate on the season. So, I mean, that's huge.
Yep. And so, yeah, exactly. You talk about the sort of full stat line, right? Like building it all into a full player here. It's not just about usage, but about those other rebounding rate and assist rate as we talk through. But you look at the likes of the mid-tier, and you get to the likes of a Russell and a Lou Williams, who I think continues to go under the radar for what he does, simply because of, and I know he's had some down games, but their rotations really do give Lou Williams a lot of usage in that second unit. And I know they're sitting Kawhi. You're not getting a full allotment of minutes from him. Paul George is playing 32 to 36 minutes on the regular. But Lou Williams is somebody that I like targeting where the matchup is a +1. And this Minnesota one should be a pace-up spot, I'm pretty sure. If I remember correctly, Minnesota is top 5. Yeah, they're 5th overall. Well, I guess the Clippers are 7th, so not pace-up per se, but a high-paced game. Do you like Lou Williams, and who else in this mid-tier do you think has some opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the rest of this team, the usage is pretty condensed between like 3 or 4 guys. You have Lou Williams, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and to a lesser extent, Montrezl Harrell around like 25, 26%. Outside of that, there's really nobody that's getting, any real legitimate opportunities as a scorer. So Lou Williams with this price tag, that's the only thing. I feel like he's a little bit pricey for this spot. You can probably do a bit better. I'd want to pay up just a little bit more. Like, for example, Malcolm Brogdon is 7,500 against Atlanta. That's pretty nice. Even D'Angelo Russell, I know it's a tough spot against Utah, but 7,700 for a guy that's, operating with monster usage and is also pretty much guaranteed to get those minutes, barring a blowout, whereas Lou Williams could play 28 based on just the way that Doc Rivers decides to go about things. But all in all, it's a pretty favorable matchup. Or I'm sorry, it's a pretty strong position. There's definitely a lot to like here. And then, by the way, just to throw this out there, when you're looking at the injuries, Vooch, Rivers, Tyson Chandler, Fultz, I'm just going by the guys that are doubtful right now. So if some of them aren't important, they're all doubtful. Batum's doubtful. Eric Pascal's doubtful. Draymond Green's out for rest. We forgot to hit on this. Ja Morant's out. Kyle Korver. Goran Dragic is out. Justice Winslow is out. Marvin Williams, Al Horford. This is a back-to-back, so he might be playing. I'm not sure. He's listed out, but he might play because it's counting today. Favors is still questionable. There's Kuzma, Rondo, Tyler Hero, all questionable. Dude, there's a lot here. Yanis questionable, JaMychal Green, Jeff Teague, Bates Diop. That's a lot to take in.
It is. I think Horford will go. It seems as though he was in the warm-up line and all.
It looked. I thought he was going to play, especially against his former team.
Yeah, all signs point to that being a, hey, we're going to send him out because of quote-unquote knee and get the back-to-back, get him in the lineup on Friday night. Any cheap options at point guard stand out to you? Somebody that maybe minutes-wise, these injuries, something that stands out as a potential play, or are you willing to maybe save cash at a different position?
Right now, there's not a lot. Keep an eye. If Kevin Huerter starts playing more minutes, then I'm definitely interested. I've been chirping about this for a couple of days now. I tweeted it the other night. He is getting the backup point guard minutes now behind Trae Young. Very interesting. When you get somebody that starts handling those minutes instead of playing off the ball, that's huge. And DeAndre Bembry's minutes have been basically cut down to nothing. He had been the backup point guard if it wasn't Evan Turner. Evan Turner played 13 minutes last game, but didn't play at all the game before that. And he scored 0 points, had a terrible game against Chicago. My guess is that some of that came in blowout run anyway because they got smoked. So, keep a close eye on that. To me, it's pretty damn important if you're looking at someone like Herter and everyone's just seeing him as this off-the-ball spot-up shooter, but now he's getting assist opportunities. He had 10 potential assists 2 games ago. Pretty significant.
There are so many already ugly totals on this 12-13 slate that are depressing me, but we'll get to that as we discuss here further. Shooting guard eligible. Obviously, we still have James Harden at the top. Jimmy Butler here at 9,500. Kawhi, Donovan Mitchell, 8,100. I think I'll be on again. I do understand his assist rate is down comparatively to what you'd like to see with Conley out, as Dave was discussing from a usage perspective. There is some upside there. What do you make of Butler here? Jimmy Butler has been one of those guys who's just been dynamic to start the year. We know he's really talented. Saw him in Philadelphia, obviously. We've seen him in previous stops along the way and with the Bulls. Is this just a matchup that the defense has been too good? You have AD, you have LeBron, you have the supporting pieces that you'd stay away from Butler at this elevated price point? Or is he still not priced accurately on a site like DraftKings?
He's expensive, but Butler's been doing everything. And that's what you're looking for, right? Now, on a 9-game slate, it's tough. Once you're getting up close to this salary, it's tough, but they're playing really well. The thing here, though, is this is a really difficult matchup. The Lakers are not losing games, and they're not losing games because defensively they're very solid. But the big thing with Butler is even in regular, this is what's huge. Once again, the minutes. Like he's playing the type of minutes that Tom Thibodeau gave him in Chicago. I mean, maybe more. Yep. Look at some of this run. Atlanta, 42 minutes. Chicago, 44. 36 against Washington. 37. 41. Just absurd playing time for Jimmy Butler. And what you're seeing is huge numbers. Triple doubles. He's got 2 of them over his last 3 games. I know one of those games we talked about was an overtime game, but still, what does it matter? Like, he's putting up monster numbers left and right. And you look at his rates and you wonder where it's all coming from, because 25% usage, 31% assist, 11% rebounding, 3% steal rate, 2.5% block rate. He's doing everything. And I don't ever mind getting to him, but I do think that price is a little bit restrictive given the options around him.
All right. How else do you shake out the top end of shooting guard? Does a guy like Lou Williams make sense more here? Does somebody in the mid-tier stand out to you? What do you got across the board on shooting guard?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Brogdon and Russell, both of them viable. Zach LaVine, that's a tough one because he's a 30% usage guy, and he's the clear number 1 on this team. It's not even remotely close. I don't mind him here, but I probably go to like Russell, Mitchell, and Brogdon over him. I really like that 7 and 8K range. There's a lot there. Butler's going to be one of the guys that you project highest at the position, but on a point per dollar basis, is he somebody that you're looking for? Probably not. I even think somebody like Drew Holiday at 7,400 will pay attention to what kind of injuries we have in New Orleans, but I think even he at that price is viable because you're getting 36, 37 minutes. Philly's playing their second of a back-to-back. We probably don't have a line on that yet, right? Or a total?
I don't think so. Let me refresh.
No, that game just ended, so I don't think we would. But at that salary, I don't mind him. When you're talking about some value guys, Dragic is out. The question is what with Kendrick Nunn, what are we looking at in terms of salary?
You wanted to say Chris Dunn, didn't you?
I wanted to say Chris Dunn.
Every damn time. Every damn time.
Yeah, very close. Nunn played 42 minutes last game, 42 minutes the game before that, so 37 in regulation, then 42 against Chicago. 6,700's pricey, though. And I had a ton of him last time out because he was way cheaper. Once you start getting up there, it's a lot more difficult to feel good about that, especially on a team that can move the ball around quite a bit. Value-wise, I want to pay attention to what we get with some injuries, but one guy that could be worthwhile, his minutes have come up recently, is Terrence Ross. He's very boom or bust. Like, he's going to have some awful games, and when he's not knocking down shots, he's useless. But he's played 27, 30, and 29 over his last three. He's a 25% usage guy off the bench. And you could see more opportunities if Markelle Fultz ends up being sidelined again. So, for someone that has like 25% usage, I don't think he's a terrible option either. Talked about Herder. Value just right now isn't great. So I'm really waiting on injuries to see what we end up getting here. Right now, there's nobody that we can talk about that makes a ton of sense. I'll throw this guy out and then we can move on. Bogdan Bogdanovich, there's got to be something wrong with him. He's got to be hurt. I have no other explanation that he's playing through significant injury. In this game going up against the New York Knicks at 4,700, it is hard not to have some interest. I mean, Bagley's going to take away usage, especially if he plays off the bench. But 4,700 is cheap. He just hasn't looked right. He's looked nothing like the Bogdanovich that came in and took over when De'Aaron Fox went down however many weeks ago.
Yep. I think that is something we talked about a couple times the past 2 days on the podcast, was my love of Richaun Holmes and Bagley being back. He played 23 minutes as I look it up here. Who does that affect? We can look at game flows. We can figure that out. But Holmes did seem to have just a bad game in the same time that Bagley was back. But you look at Hield and what Hield's been doing there, as we've talked about a couple of times here on the pod, and someone like Bogdanovich doesn't seem to have things going in the right direction. The direction we're going in is to small forward. You have Yanis at the top. 11.2 seems pretty damn cheap, Dave. I know we talked about it at the top, but do we fade Yanis because of a blowout? Like, this feels like an absolute crush spot for a guy who is 1,400 less than James Harden?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that James Harden probably plays 40 minutes again.
Yep. That's
the big thing, but he's also a lot more expensive. I don't mind Giannis here. The blowout, concerns the hell out of me. And we don't have a line, so it makes me wonder if Giannis actually is dealing with an injury. I don't know.
They're listing it as one, so
they're definitely being cautious with him.
Yeah, and that's every note is maybe the Bucks are being cautious on a back-to-back, so maybe he sits out Friday too. I will say, fine. Like, obviously you take care of your superstar, but it does very much feel like, were they on a 16-game winning streak, let him rest. Like, let him sit, and if it's a quad contusion or a quad injury, maybe that's a 5% quad injury and 95% he wants to sit and watch the game.
Yeah, and the problem here too is like Saturday's games against the Cavs.
He's got to play one of them, right?
Right. Like, he definitely doesn't need to play either of them. The Cavs game is at home though, so maybe you want to get him in front of a home crowd, but so is the New Orleans game. I don't know if he's injured or not. Pretty simple. If he doesn't play, Chris Middleton, his prices come up a little bit, but you play him anyway. Bledsoe's prices come up a little bit, you play him anyway. I had 99% Bledsoe last game, so that's kind of just the way. Why not? Like, why not? Even though that game blew out, he played like 26 minutes and still crushed because they're dominant with him off the floor. They're just absolutely dominant with Giannis off the floor. There's so much usage, the rebounding. When you take a legitimate nightly triple-double threat off the floor, it opens things up for absolutely everyone.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense when those numbers are free to make their way around. What about the rest of small forward at the top end? We get Butler again. We get Leonard. Paul George steps in here at 8,800. You have Brandon Ingram at 7,600. Tobias is 7,200 against New Orleans, which has been a pretty prime spot for a ton of offensive players. What do you like at small forward overall?
It drives me nuts that Ben Simmons hasn't been more aggressive, but his minutes are huge right now. And in competitive games, God, he's out there forever. He played another 37 minutes tonight. It's crazy. I like him here against New Orleans. Pace up spot for sure. Like I said, we don't have a line because Philly just got done this win over Boston, but I think it's going to be up around 227 or so, 226.
Okay.
And that's going to be pretty appealing. It is a home game. Philly should be a pretty significant favorite, but I don't really care. I like him.
I'm going to go the under, by the way. I'm going to say 223.
Okay. It sounds about. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. New Orleans is just a very bad defense that plays at a top 5 pace. So, Kawhi Leonard against Minnesota, 33, 32% usage guy, going to give you 33 minutes if this game's close. I don't mind him at 9K. There's a lot of pricey guys. Really, the thing is, would you rather play Butler at 95 or Kawhi at 9K? It's a real question. Like, even at 95, with the way Butler's played, just how involved he is, how he's playing 40 minutes in regulation, you could still make an argument for him. Brandon Ingram is a little bit too expensive for me, too. I like this game. I don't love Horford or Richardson, but I don't have an issue with guys like Harris. We'll get to Embiid, Ingram on the other side. I already mentioned Drew Holiday. This could be a pretty high-scoring game, and if it stays close, you're gonna want a lot of it.
Well, I guess I'm sort of putting the cart before the horse here as I jump into the lower mid-tier, but is there some love for a guy like Joe Ingles against Golden State? And pardon me if you talked about him at shooting guard, but it's a guy playing 30-plus minutes, has some upside with the 3-ball, has been sort of middling when it comes to rebounds and assists on the year, maybe 4 or 5 on a good game. But do you think there's enough upside at 5,800 that Ingles may be somewhere to save on this slate?
Well, Ingles has definitely been one of the main beneficiaries from Mike Conley being out. So that's good to see. They've also played in a number of blowouts since Conley's been out. So look at some of those numbers and make sure to check out the game flows and see what the minutes have looked like. But, you take this one against Minnesota, even though it got a little bit out of hand, they still closed the game out. Their starting lineup closed out the game. And Jingles played 36, almost 37 minutes. So significant minutes. He was also in foul trouble in the game before, so take that into consideration. But I definitely like knowing that he's going to be out there a lot. And guys like Moutier and aren't really going to play. I know he played 22 minutes last time. Dante Exum didn't get on the court. Jeff Green didn't start against this specific lineup in Minnesota. But I still don't have a ton of faith in Emmanuel Moutier. I can tell you that much. I know he had a decent game, and I'm sure there will be some interest in him. I'm guessing that people will go to Emmanuel Moutier here. If you wanted to do that against Golden State, I'm not going to fault you for it, but I think Moutier could just as easily go back to seeing 17, 18 minutes again. And that wouldn't surprise me. He's not closing the game out. He had quite a bit of run. And here's why. This is why I think this is why it's so important to look over this stuff, because I'm just seeing this now. This is why it's just of supreme importance. Donovan Mitchell had 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game. Okay, so Moutier came in after 4 minutes. Boom, there you go. Like that's all you need to know. He got an extra 4 minutes in this game. It literally got an extra 4 minutes. And the game before that, he played 18. So I'm not going to project him for 22. I'm going to project him for 18 minutes because Donovan Mitchell was in foul trouble.
Yep.
But if Ingles is playing big minutes, which he is seemingly every night with Mike Conley out at this price, I don't have an issue with him. I think this game probably gets a bit out of hand, but probably get another 35, 37 fantasy points from Ingles just from being on the floor. He's not an elite per minute guy by any stretch, but he's actually seeing more ball handling opportunities with Mike Conley off the floor. We've seen it in the past where he's the secondary facilitator. He can bring the ball up the court when Mitchell's not doing it, and Moutier shouldn't play 22, 24 minutes in this one. Yeah, I don't mind Joe Ingles at all.
Any other thoughts at small forward before we make our way to power forward?
Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable talking on the value plays right now. There's too many spots that are in question and no one that I really like. Like if you're just taking it now and saying who's fine, even if none of these injuries play out, Kevin Huerter, Terrence Ross, Bogdanovich in tournaments, but I really don't have a lot of faith in him right now. Aside from that, you're not looking at a whole lot. Damion Lee last game played 15 minutes in his return. I would have loved to have seen, because he's minimum salary. If he came back and played like 25, that'd be nice. But there's too many bodies here to make any sense of that. Eric Paschall is doubtful to play too. He played 27 minutes last game. So Lee might actually benefit from that.
Sure.
You might see Paschall long-winded response, but I want to make sure we get this right. Paschall played 21 and 17. He tweaked his back last game. Ever since they started getting healthy with like Looney and Green and Russell all back, it looked like his minutes took a massive hit. But if you're going to void 21 or so minutes, you might see another 7-8 of them go to Damion Lee. It might not be the worst option, especially if Moutier ends up being chalk value, which would be insane.
All right, let's take our turn to power forward, but I do want to point out before we get there that Yahoo DFS has some big tournaments on the weekend, but one on Friday night as well. It's a $50K baller, $10 entry. It's a $10K to first place. It is an 11% management fee. The top 1,180 teams are paid in this one, a max of 150 entries. So it is MME, and you can use the tools over at Awesemo.com. Again, if you use the promo code EARLYBIRD just for today through the end of Friday, you have 50% off your first month of your subscription. Beyond that, you will have to start using the week-long or other promotions that we have available to you over at Awesemo.com. And I will tease out, I'm gonna talk to the powers that be, but I may have a holiday gift on one of the forthcoming podcasts before holiday season ends from myself personally.
Oh, very nice.
To a
very
sub.
Nice.
So I have to make sure, I have to confirm. I want to make sure that it's legal, it's binding, it's all of those things. But we'll try to figure something out. I would like to give back to the community that has been so kind to me over the years as we head into the new year. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll get to that next week at some point. I'll confirm with the powers that be at Awesemo.com. But let's move on to power forward. We have a lot of the cast characters that we've talked about many times over. The guy I want to hammer in on early and then get the rest of your thoughts is Sabonis just keeps on putting up numbers that are legitimately floor games. Like the double-doubles are a kind of a drop in the bucket for him at this point. And he has a matchup here with Atlanta with the front court that I would say is not all that great. I haven't looked at their recent stats when it comes to defensive rating or rebound rate or any of those, but just sort of back of the envelope feels like this is another spot where Sabonis should be in a pretty good spot, but he's just 8,100. Am I missing something? Did his price drop because it's just DK's algorithm and ownership, or is this a matchup that maybe is a little worse off for someone like Sabonis?
No, you're not missing anything. But this is like the price that he's been at all season. I think he's totally fine here, but yeah, he hasn't come up. He hasn't come down. I think he came up a couple $100 since the last game, but nothing significant. Against Atlanta, against that front court, no, I'm very much okay with Sabonis. He's one of the better, point per dollar guys at the position, and you'd be hard pressed not to like him in this spot. We don't have a lot of lines on most, or we don't have lines on most games, but a 222.5 total, a pace up spot for Indy, good matchup. Atlanta front court that does not do a solid job of protecting the rim, and it makes sense with the personnel that they have out there. I'm perfectly fine with that. Yeah. I like Brandon Ingram at 76, Tobias Harris at 72. All of these guys I think are viable, but I'm not counting Sabonis out of the picture either. No way.
Where else are you turning here at power forward? We have a lot of the names we've talked about sort of in the peripheral, or we have tertiary and peripheral so far. But you have Marcus Morris, who has been stellar for the Knicks. He's been probably the best Knick on the year, which is really tough for me to say, but Marcus Morris has been the most reliable Knick on the year. He has Sacramento, which isn't the best matchup for a front court player, but at 6,600, still affordable. You have the likes of Montrezl Harrell, as you mentioned. Bagley is here at 6,200. Jaren Jackson Jr. is 62. Isaac, whose price point has dropped a bunch because of Gordon being back in the lineup at 61. We're also going at power forward. It doesn't feel as deep as it typically is.
Yeah, just talk about want to talk about Marvin Bagley for a second here. So he comes back, plays 23 minutes. Here's the crazy part, though, and I did not see this happening. All of his minutes came at center, backing up Richaun Holmes. And Richaun Holmes got in early foul trouble.
Yep.
So I don't know how much of that actually affected Bagley's minutes. Like, would he have played less? I think he probably would have played around 20. But he's gonna. You would think he's gonna start getting minutes at the 4 as well. He in the past, that's what we had been seeing for sure. And Bjelica, who played, let's see, Bjelica did not play into the fourth quarter. Wow, he played his third quarter rotation, and then the bench had a long stretch. Ariza and Bogdanovich closed it out. With Hield, Harrison, Barnes, and Holmes in a game that was decided by 1 point. I don't know what the fuck to make of that. I honestly have no idea. I think as Bagley's minutes come up, we're going to start playing him. But right now, probably don't see myself getting there. The 7K range is where I'll probably and that Sabonis spot is where I really like. It gets a little bit dicey in the mid range, the lower mid range. Markkanen against Charlotte, it's a fine spot, but his usage is down. He's really disappointed. The minutes have hovered anywhere between like 28 and 33. He's had a couple games with bigger minutes, but it's hard to rely on that. His shooting's been a bit better, but he's not rebounding. I've seen nothing to suggest that we should be confident about that. PJ Washington's production hasn't been great, but with Batum expected to be out again, Marvin Williams coming back? I think he's already out, isn't he? He's already out. So that means PJ Washington probably plays another 37 minutes. He played 40 against Washington, 37 against Brooklyn. I know he wasn't great, but sometimes you just have to take those minutes. And this is going up against the Bulls team that's not going to frighten anybody. I think Washington's a pretty strong value option here at 5,600. Bridges is another one. You don't love him, but the minutes should be significant. He played 38 and 36. He's actually played 36 plus in 3 straight games. Batum being out should help him, but not just that. You got guys like Bacon and Monk that either aren't playing or are only playing a couple of minutes. So you don't have to like these guys. You don't have to think they're highly productive because they're not. But if you're playing close to 40 minutes in regulation at those price points, I think they're actually too cheap.
I will say this, as we talk through here, Lamar Jackson has 5 TDs on Thursday night. Good for him. 5
passing touchdowns.
Right. To clarify, 5 passing touchdowns.
It's incredible. And 86 rushing yards.
And he's throwing
me, man.
The pass to Mark Ingram was the sort of sidearm Aaron Rodgers-esque. I don't really care what I'm doing right now, but I'm going to throw a dart to someone out in the flat.
I just texted a couple of buddies and I was like, every dynasty league that I have Lamar Jackson in, I'm just feel like I'm set for years.
Years to come.
At the position, at least.
So I will point out, and this is me completely making shit up. So I do feel as though Friday night may be a Joel Embiid rest night. So Al Horford at 6K against New Orleans.
You might be.
I like a ton.
Right.
So this is a situation where Horford at 6K, because of the way this Philly lineup tends to ebb and flow, sat out the previous game, or what is now Thursday night. We still don't have a line on that game. Doesn't mean anything when it comes to Embiid sitting out. He went out and proved his business, put up 38 points against Boston, had a heck of a game. I think we might see Embiid sit Friday. Now, everyone will know that heading in, so it's not like Horford will be some sort of magical low-owned salve for your lineup. But I will say that Horford, I think, may get some nice run here at 6K. That could be a help to your lineup. Let's talk center.
By the way, Embiid played 36 minutes tonight.
Yep.
Keep in mind, he played the last 2 back-to-backs that the Sixers have played. He's played. Mm-hmm. Now, 22 and the 23rd of November, he played 28 and 26 minutes. That was a monster blowout against Miami and an easy victory against San Antonio. Against the Knicks and Pacers on the 29th and 30th of November, they were both decided by, 6 or fewer points, 35 and 33 minutes. So you could definitely be right, but 35 and 33 minutes in back-to-backs, like he wants to play these.
Yep.
So it's definitely not a lock that he sits out.
Agreed. And I would say it's my completely off the wall random, like me saying that.
I don't think it's off the wall either. Like it's definitely possible that he doesn't play.
Well, I don't know if you heard on Tuesday, I was predicting that Bobby Portis and Carmelo were going to get into a fist fight. So, I mean,
did they?
No, they did not.
Okay.
But I mean,
I thought I'd hear about
it's within the realm of possibilities, right? That those are two players who could legitimately, well, I mean, Portis would kill Carmelo, but that's a different story for a different time. But
kill him.
Nonetheless, let's talk centers. We have a ton here that we have to like. Embiid is one of them at 9,600 against New Orleans. You do have Towns against the Clippers. AD is a – did we talk AD at power forward? Did I skip over him? What's your thoughts, Anthony Davis, against Miami here? Any overall thoughts on the guy who will carry a perpetual Q tag with him through the end of the season?
Yeah, you're damn right about that. I don't have an issue with Davis. 39, 38 minutes over his last two. His price is down. Miami defensively is good. They're top 10, I think. Yeah, 10th in defensive rating. They average less than 100 possessions per 48. I do think this game will be pretty slow paced. Like, what's the line? Do we have one? I would think we don't have one. Damn.
Nope.
I feel like the total's probably going to be like 216, 217, which isn't crazy low. It's definitely not high either. But there was something I swear I saw when I was looking up numbers that Miami allowing post points to was, let's see here. Yeah, so Miami's allowing the third fewest post up points to opponents this season. Anthony Davis is going to operate quite heavily in the post. They're also allowing bottom 8 points per possession in the post. That's not the only way Davis can score, of course, but we saw it with Toronto and Joel Embiid. Teams that are very good in post defense can do that repetitiously day in and day out because, it takes one guy to guard him and then you bring help in. And if you're good at it, you're going to see, just really good results like Toronto and like Miami. Anthony Davis is second in post scoring this year. He's actually really struggled. 0.97, not struggle, but 0.97 points per possession. You look at Embiid, it's 1.08. So a pretty stark contrast. I don't mind Davis because I think his price tag is still very reasonable given the monster ceiling he has, but I don't see him as a priority either.
All right. How else do you feel the top end of the center plays out?
Oh, man. I keep getting burned by Joe Val, and it's frustrating because, 27 minutes against Golden State, and he fouled out. He was on pace. When was that game? That was the 9th.
The 9th,
right?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so that was on the 9th. And I wanted to just look at that because I'm pretty sure here we go. So when he fouled out, he came in for this final stint and fouled out with 6 minutes left still. He was on pace to play huge minutes in this game. I know that because I had him, and in the first half, I felt great. He played 10, 16, 17. He played 18 and a half minutes in the first half. He was on pace to play monster minutes and then ends up fouling out after 27. Then he plays 25 against Phoenix. He's having a terrible game. Against Utah, that game blew out. He was in early foul trouble. Played 32 against Utah before, 34 against the Clippers. I don't know what his minutes are going to be, but he's down to 6,500. I'd be lying if I said I didn't still have some interest in Joe Val. He's a high usage player, phenomenal rebounder, and a great per minute guy. 1.3 fantasy points per minute over the last 3 seasons. That's by memory. I'm pretty sure it's accurate enough. Karl Anthony Towns sub 10K against the Clippers. One of their weaknesses is their interior defense is not that good. I think he's a pretty solid option here. You're probably going with him over Anthony Davis. I would think so in this specific spot. This total is, what are we at, Dan? What are we at? 230. Right now, of the ones that we have, that's the highest on the slate.
Yep.
So I like him. What else do we have here? Clint Capella's just been really good. His minutes have fluctuated, kind of concerning because sometimes he plays 28. but he's playing huge minutes in these close games, at least in most of them. $7,800 to me is too cheap. I know he hasn't been great lately, but he's pretty much a locked-in double-double. On sites that reward that, you'll take it. And he feeds off Harden and Westbrook assists. That's what happens. You know, pick and roll, put back attempts. He's going to get it his each and every game. But that $6,500 salary on Jovel, I get that it's a potential blowout. It's a tough matchup against a good Milwaukee defense, but they're also the fastest paced team in the league, and he's still a good player. So they're saying there's Rudy Gobert against the Golden State Warriors. That's another favorable spot. We talked about Sabonis. Man, there's a lot here at the top. Oh, and if Embiid plays, I am not going to limit him in terms of when I project minutes. I'm not going to limit him. I'll give him 32. I don't think that's really limiting him at all. 36 is an outlier usually. You project Embiid for 32 minutes at 9,600 against New Orleans. My assumption is you're going to get a lot.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. As we get to the cheap end of the pool, you look at someone like, the Charlotte the front court where you have the likes of Biyombo and Zeller. Do you prefer one over the other? Or is it just too good a matchup? Sorry, not a good enough matchup to try to split hairs and figure out which one of them is going to have the upside game?
Yeah, the thing is, okay, so last game Zeller played 20 minutes and Biyombo played 24. So they're not even in these games, they're not always even splitting all of the minutes at the 5, which kind of sucks. Like PJ Washington's getting some minutes there. If they were splitting them and you knew that one of them could play like 27, 26, that'd be a lot more appealing than knowing that there's a 3-man center rotation. I hate that. Cody Zeller's price is up. Biyombo's up to $4K. If I'm going to go with one, I'll go with the cheaper option. But no, I don't love any of these guys for the exact reason. Even 5 minutes to Washington at the 5 hurts. Probably rather just go to like Marcus Chris, who with Draymond Green out, does that affect him a lot? Probably not. But Pascal also being out or doubtful, you might see 27 minutes or so for Marcus Chris, and then he becomes a very good value play. He's already getting 24 minutes a game.
Anybody else on the cheap end of the pool for center that you want to point out?
No, not right now. I'd say Mitchell Robinson's always viable, but that price tag's a little bit high for me. Just pay attention to injuries. This is huge right now with some of the names that are lingering in the questionable category, because if they end up being out, it's going to free up a ton.
As you know, you can find Dave on Sirius 210 XM 87. That is the fantasy sports channel over there on Sirius XM. You can find him 5 to 7 on Saturdays and 7 to 9 on Sundays. Him and Manny Laura. Awesemo Radio getting you set for Sunday's DFS slate while they look at that on Saturday. And then, of course, recapping the day on Sunday, looking at the showdown slate and so much more on Sunday. Find him on Twitter at Lofty_D. I will say it for a third time. I was told only to do it twice, but I'm going to say it a third time. Use that promo code EARLYBIRD. Gets you 50% off your first month at Awesemo. That is going away. So if you want to get 50% off a monthly subscription, do that now. Do it today on Friday. If you so choose to not do it, we'll have more promos in the future, and I will figure out what I'm giving away next week in honor of the holiday season myself, completely for me, but I will clear it with the powers that be on the management side of Awesemo.com. So stay tuned for that. If you are listening still, and bless you if you are, you will want to know that you can subscribe here to our free stuff. You get the NBA Strategy Show, you get the Deeper Dive, you get Live Before Lock, all free from YouTube. If you want to be a sub, tons of stuff behind the paywall. Projections, Alex does a paywalled show 4 out of 5 days of the week, Monday through Thursday. Then he's on the Deeper Dive on Fridays. And you get so much more behind the paywall with projections and the lineup builder and so on from there. Find Dave on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. That's Lofty_D. Find myself at Dan Strafford. It's Awesemo_com. With all of that said, on Saturday, you get EMAC and somebody. Adam's in Puerto Rico, so I don't know who's recording with EMAC Friday night, but whoever it is, bless their soul. EMAC, I love you. We'll talk soon right here on the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com.